Hello, it's 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition. For tonight's headlines, we have the President of the National Commission for Human Rights gives an update on the situations of Gabon prison. For the international scene, the head of the UN warns against the world food crisis. Welcome to our newsroom. The President of the National Commissions of Human Rights, who yesterday visited the Gabon civil prison at the head of the CNDH delegation, is held a press conference at the CNDH premises today about this visit yesterday to Gabon prison. It should be noted that the president of the CNDH himself is interrogating inmate Fouad Yusuf Ali and not the press as he was mistakenly told last night. Listen to the report.
The President of the Commission on Human Rights, thank you for receiving us at the Commission's headquarters for this press conference. For my first question, Mr. Suleiman, I would like us to get straight to the point. What are the conditions of detention of Lieutenant Fouad Yusuf Ali today? Yesterday, 9 June 2020, we visited the civilian prison. We were there in this prison counts in the police stations of the districts and brigades of Djibouti to inquire about the conditions of detention and treatment of detainees. We were not particularly there for Yusuf Ali, but it was a visit as part of our usual work. But as Mr. Fouad Yusuf Ali was among the detainees, of course we visited the cell where he was being held. It was the famous cell 12. I would like to remind you that cell 12 is not a single cell. It is a block of 12 identical cells, individual cells, and that Mr. Fouad Yusuf Ali was in cell number 5 of the 12 cells. The touching video that circulated in social networks gave this impression of a cell apart, in which the prisoners were mistreated. But it's a block of 12 cells sharing a common cut. Mr. Fouad occupies cell number 5, the number of cells side by side, assuming that 4 on either side of that cell was also occupied. Like the other 11 cells that made up this block, it is a part of our mission to inquire about the condition of detention of any prisoners or to inquire about the conditions of detention of Mr. Fouad. We visited his cell. I took the dimensions of this cell myself by measuring with the means at my disposal, that is to say my steps. The dimension of the cell were 4 meters, by 2, of course. The toilets were integrated into it. It was equipped with a ceiling fan working. It was also equipped with a ventilation window, and a door with a grate for ventilation of the premises. It was also observed that in all the cells, the toilets occupied less than 1 meter, jumping in length, so that any prisoner in these cells has at least 3 meters to sleep, to do his prayer, and possibly other needs he considers necessary.
The President of Human Rights Commission, Suleiman Omar Udin, who met yesterday during his visit with the prisoner Fouad Yusuf Ali, who questioned him personally during this press conference, raised the conditions of detention and health of prisoner Fouad Yusuf Ali. Listen to the report.
We went to the prison of Gabon. Fortunately, it coincided with the 2 hours of work that Mr. Fouad was enjoying. Like all other prisoners in this prison, he was in the yard. The members of the delegation that I was leading, we went up to him and questioned him about his state of health, about the conditions of detention. We asked him whether he was enjoying all his rights, in accordance with the Human Rights Convention ratified by the Republic of Djibouti, in particular, the Convention Against Torture and Ill Treatment, inhuman or degrading and cruel. And during this interview, we made sure that he was in a suitable state of health. He assured that he was not subjected to any ill treatment or cruel treatment or any injuries that might have been caused to his body. If I go into the details of his health status, in this touching video that has been circulated in social network, Mr. Fouad Yusuf Ali presented injuries. We questioned Mr. Fouad on the origin of his injuries. Mr. Fouad Yusuf Ali explained that he suffered from an allergy and that his wounds first appeared on August 9, 2019, when he developed a rash while he was at home at that time. He was not a prisoner, and that those rashes reappeared when he was imprisoned. It's easy to imagine that August 9, 2019, it was the hot season in Djibouti, and Mr. Fouad was at home during the hot season. We asked him this question about his right to have a medical visit. Mr. Fouad assured us that he received a visit from 2 doctors that the justice had sent him in this case. He told us, including Mr. Elias, the doctor, and that he was satisfied with their visit.
During this press conference, the president of the Human Rights was questioned about the number of prisoners in the prison of Gabot, which is overcrowded. More detail in this report.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Commission. Beyond the issue of Fuad Yusuf, there is a question that deserves to be raised because this is a rather serious situation. I'm referring to prison overcrowding. Is this what the National Human Rights Commission is proposing? You are right to ask that question. That's one of the difficulties, that's the major difficulty that we're seeing every time we visit the civil prison in Gabot. I have been at the head of the commission since 2016, and since our first visit up to this day, we see that there are between 450 and 600 prisoners, depending on the year, depending on the period we visit. While this prison that dates back to the 60s, designed to hold 300 people, we can see there is overcrowding. Yesterday, we went to this prison. There were exactly 487 inmates. The majority of the inmates were adult males. There were 17 women and 19 minors. The President of the Republic, aware of the existing overcrowding in this prison, introduced the proximity that may have seen that overcrowding has broadened 178 prisoners to be exact at the beginning of the emergence of this pandemic in Djibouti. You can imagine without that perhaps the numbers would be even higher. We will raise these problems every year in every visit we make to the prison of Gabot. We put ourselves on our report that we draw up at the end of each visit, and the government has assured us of its willingness and even its commitment to build a more modern prison which meets current needs at PK 53.
In Ali Sabih, the Minister of Interior, Mumin Ahmed Sheikh, held a meeting yesterday morning at the prefecture of Ali Sabih region for consultations with the not elder, the wise man and chief of the district in the presence of the prefect of Ali Sabih, Musa Aden Migane. In all, several elders and wise men from different parts of Asajo City participate in this meeting, whose aim was to maintain peace and security in the region following last Friday's demonstrations, which caused a great deal of material damage. The notable and wise men of the district expressed their satisfaction at the holding of this meeting chaired by the Minister of Interior and said they were ready to take up the challenge and promised that each of them would see to the stability of the Ali Sabih region. The Secretary General of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Saleh Banoita Turab, has made the daily press briefings on the situations of COVID-19 in Djibouti. Listen to the report.
Sur la situation COVID-19.
The Secretary General of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Saleh Banoita Turab, gave us the daily press briefing on the situation of COVID-19 outbreak of today, Wednesday, June 10, 2020. The data of the COVID-19 epidemic is as follows: 745 tests performed, 42 positive cases at COVID-19, 121 cases cured, and 0 new deaths. And as for the global balance sheet, it declines as follows: 38,240 tests were performed, of which 4,373 COVID-19 positive, and 2,260 cases were confirmed cured, 34 deaths in total. Stay alert, protect yourself and others.
In Arta, on the instructions of President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Gelle, under the authority of the people of Arta to set up a firefighting unit, today a partnership agreement was signed with the Army for the setting up of a firefighting vehicle duly armed with the personal staff in the presence of the Director General of Civil Protection, Colonel Mahmoud Musa Mahmoud, the Prefect of Arta City, Mr. Muhammad Sheikh Hassan, the Head of the Corps, Colonel Ibrahim Ali Farah, and the President of the Regional Council, Ilmi Bouha. The staffs and equipment assigned to the firefighting unit has been temporarily placed under the responsibility of the Head of the Armed Corps until the National Directorate of Civil Protection takes over. In the near future, a firefighting station will be built in Arta and will be equipped with the sophisticated equipment. We have just learned with dismay the disappearance of the Director of Audit and Portfolio, the late Ahmed Jama Ilmi, on Tuesday, 9 June 2020. The Sudanese hospital in the afternoon. The deceased, aged 42, left a widow and 4 young girls. The Minister of Economy and Finance in charge of Industry, Ilyas Musa Dawale, addresses his most sincere and saddened condolences to his family. May God welcome him in his eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. For the international scene, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned Tuesday of a global food crisis. More detail with Dini Musa.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned Tuesday of a global food crisis with long-term repercussions for hundreds of millions of children and adults if nothing is done to mitigate the consequences of the pandemic. Our food systems are no longer functioning and the COVID-19 pandemic is making the situation worse, he said in a statement accompanying a UN study recalling that today more than 820 million people do not have enough to eat. Some 144 million children under the age of 5 suffer from stunted growth, more than 1 child in 5 worldwide. This year, 49 million more people could fall into extreme poverty as a result of this crisis caused by the pandemic, he warns. The number of people who are severely food insecure or severely malnourished will increase rapidly, the Secretary General predicts, calling for mobilization to focus on where the risk is most acute.
This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us.